Hello, everybody, and welcome to another full moon free talk here at the Moon Garden. We have a very special guest today. So, today we're going to have some tea time with Kobe Michael. Many of you probably already know him as the Poisoner's Apothecary. He's a witch, he's a writer, he's the founder of the Poisoner Apothecary, founder of the Botanica Obscura Conference, is a virtual conference, alongside Amy Ostara Moon. And he's one of my witchy crushes personally. I love Kobe's work. I think he is a beautiful person inside and out. I love his approach to magic. So I'm just very happy to be here and talk to Kobe. So Kobe, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, hi, I'm super excited to be here too. And, I could say the same about you, so that's really nice to hear. We get kind of trapped in little bubbles, even though we exist so much on social media that it can kind of be a little bit isolating, and you kind of forget like your not your purpose, but your effect on other people or connection to other people. And so like live interactions like this and getting to chat with people that I consider friends is really nice, just to reconnect and remember that there are like other humans out there on the other end of all of this.
That is so true. So, of course, everybody, you're going to receive all the links to follow Kobe's work, to purchase his books. Maybe we can start with your books, because I think I have all of them but the latest one. And I absolutely love the Poison Path one. Not that I did not enjoy the Leo Witch. I have two very close friends who are Leos, so I'm like, okay, I vibe with this. But the Poison Path one, it was special to me, and I know I have told you this, but I'm going to repeat myself. There is this whole thing about being a left path practitioner, right?
Mhm.
Being a practitioner who is okay with, let's say, the lesser emotions, the emotions that people don't necessarily like to talk about, especially in books, such as grief, eating disorders, emotional issues, difficult relationships, right? I think that as a magical community, it's way easier to have access to love and light. But it's pretty good. I think we all want to love and light and prosperity.
Yeah.
But, to me, because I do consider myself a left path practitioner, in Brazilian terms, if we have any Brazilian born watching this who are familiar, one of the biggest reasons why I say that my family practices Makumba and I don't put the label of Umbanda or, anything specific like that is because we have always practiced Umbanda and Kimbanda. We have this duality of our magic and everything that it's similar to like having a relationship. I would assume it's similar to have a relationship with lemon balm and datura. Like they are both important, they both serve a purpose, but we are not trying to pretend that plant medicine is all love and light. Like we understand that there are thorns, that it may kill us, that we may take it too far sometimes. So to me, when I read The Poison Path, I identified not only with the plants, a lot of them I loved, like I'm a big Datura fan, and I was like, ooh, look, all this information I heard, this is amazing. But it was the humanness of your poison path that made me fall in love with it. So I don't know, how did you arrive in that place? Like, how did you ended up growing poison in your backyard?
Yeah, I guess I can ramble on a little bit about that. I've always been kind of caught in this middle realm, this really liminal space throughout my entire life, just sort of looking back through my personality, different life experiences, things that I've been through, things that I've been attracted to, different energies and spirits that I've interacted with. And it's always kind of been this constant sort of balance and shifting between things that we would consider, very dark. And then also on the other end of it, very light. So I've always found myself kind of embodying and expressing both of these energies and being really attracted to sort of that polarization, I guess. So it's almost like when we are able to embody these sort of extremes and really, really entrench ourselves in them and experience them, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that we're then better able to, I guess, like center ourselves and kind of exist in a healthier sort of middle realm. And I think that the poison path and the plants that are associated with that really represent that duality and that ability to kind of travel through those different realms of, what we would associate with the underworld or the chthonic realm being the darker side of things, or things that we would associate more with material existence. So those could be things like fear, anger, very intense emotions, but also like sexuality and passion and connection to the earth and sort of this really deep inner wisdom. And then on the other side of that, we've got the more celestial energies or upper world energies, things that we would associate more with light and expansion. So divine inspiration, ancestral connection, which I think ancestors can kind of go either way. They kind of exist in that middle realm too. But just really being able to travel between those different realms and kind of experience those different energies are something that the poisonous plants are capable of. So, we typically associate them a little bit more with the dark side. But when we get into the plant medicine side of it, we really find out that they are just as much light bringers as they are shadow walkers. So for me, interestingly enough, and just kind of like bringing in your experience with Makumba and other, diasporic traditions, one of my initial gateways into the poison path was actually through hoodoo and root work and African American folk practices, studying the different herbal traditions connected to that. And also what we would call, quote, traditional witchcraft. So the witchcraft that kind of distinguishes itself from, New Age practices, Wiccan religion, different things like that, and is more, I guess, folkloric in its practice. So with both of those things, there is this sort of practicality and recognition that it's all about sort of achieving the things that we need to achieve to further ourselves in our progression throughout life. So that could be acquiring prosperity, it could be attracting love, it could be, punishing an enemy or advancing ourselves in a career. Things that can be achieved in a number of different ways, and some of those ways are maybe, considered by some on the light worker side of it to be, manipulative or malefic or things like that. But when we get down to like the practical nature of it, it's just that recognition of that here are all of the different tools that are available and the different avenues that you can take to get to this destination, without kind of coloring it with a black and white or good and evil sort of moral system. So that was something that really kind of pulled me in. And shortly after that was when I kind of discovered the poison path and working with baneful herbs and other plants that have that more sinister association.
I love that. I genuinely love that. I feel that as a person, even, let's say there is the person here at the Moon Garden who is still me, but let's say the everyday person, the person who has period cramps, the person who gets angry, at traffic, like my regular human self, I do exist very much in this gray area kind of deal. Like I have that personality, like I am capable of being angry at traffic and cursing at it, but it's still think about maybe this is protecting me from an accident that I would have if I wasn't stuck in traffic first. You know, like I'm capable of loving and hating at the same time, kind of deal. Like I can love my job a lot and still just want a break because today was a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that a lot of my personal work as an individual was to accept that I am okay being in this gray area, that I am okay not labeling an experience or a person or a relationship good or bad. To kind of understand that is the dosage of it, that it is who I am that day sometimes interacting with the energy. And it's not necessarily, well, because it's poisonous, period. Because it's good for you, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in life, I read this quote that unfortunately I don't remember who is from that says, everything is in moderation, including moderation.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm like, yes, because I wake up and I say good morning to all of my altars, and I greet nature and I greet my body, and I'm like, okay, let's try to be grateful for something. But there are days that I am honest with myself and I'm like, I'm not grateful for anything today. Like I would prefer to cancel everything, to I don't know, to go back to bed. To There are days that is not even going back to bed. I would like to pack a bag and disappear.
Yeah.
And like, and a lot of times I feel as a magical practitioner, there is this societal pressure, especially when you are, I don't know, writing a book about it, or in my case, that I have, clients who I mentor and all this stuff, and I'm offering this cycle of studies. And then people are like, well, aren't you supposed to feel good all the time because you know all those things? And I'm like, it's quite the opposite because I know all these things. I allow myself to feel how I feel. And I also allow myself to understand that it's just how I feel. Like, that's it. It's
Yeah.
not it's not the end of the world. It's just how I feel. And I do feel that the poison path can empower people that way, in the sense of like, okay, anger. Anger is a bad feeling, quote unquote. But my anger has taught me the boundaries of when I am being disrespected.
Mm-hmm.
There's this weird thing. Yes, when it's out of control, it can definitely be self-harm. I have had issues with that in the past, of being so angry that no matter what, I wanted my revenge. So even if I'm going to lose a foot doing it, that's what I
Yeah.
want to do. And I'm like, well, that's not a good thing, because I don't want to practice self-harm. I want to self-preservation. But if I'm feeling that angry, that is a reason. Like when in this process, I allowed myself to feel that disrespected and not say anything to arrive to that spot. And I really, when I read The Poison Path, that I read twice through, by the way, two different moments of my life, I was like, oh, this is what it is about. Like using this more, let's say, earthly bound to a degree, even though I know spirits can feel anger and resentment and all that too, to not simply to empower us, but to understand the message and to be okay with the dosage. Because if you're too complacent, then people do whatever they want with you. So you need a little bit of anger to survive, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Absolutely.
that makes any sense, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an Aries moon, so anger is like a big part of my existence. It's one of my biggest motivators, and kind of propels me forward, and not like in anger as far as like being bitter or wanting to like hurt other people, but just sort of this really defiant kind of drive that's like, I'm going to show these people in my past, or even show my past self that I can do whatever this thing is, and like no matter what, nothing's going to stand in my way. And I think that a lot of times that anger that does come up is just sort of your subconscious or your spirit or whatever you want to call it, that's showing you that there's a boundary that's being crossed. And I think in modern society where we're all meant to be so polite and so amicable and just, you know, go with the flow and be okay with everything and be professional, that anger and that emotion and enforcing those boundaries a lot of times feels like you're being mean or you're being disagreeable. And, you know, really it's not the case. I think we've just kind of like convinced ourselves of that. And so that sort of fiery anger can help to break down a lot of those barriers, you know, those loose boundaries that I guess kind of wind up being blockages that sort of keep us locked in these situations that we, you know, really don't want to be in when we sit there and talk to ourselves one-on-one. But then you get somebody else in front of you or that person that represents that crossed boundary, and it's like, oh, well, it's okay. You know, we can compromise or we can figure this out. And really what it comes down to is just like learning how to say no and growing your thorns when you need to.
Yep. I so relate to that. Like, I feel that for me, you know, one thing that people don't realize is that Makumba is very, very dependable on plants. You know, sometimes, and I understand why not, like this is not the direction of our conversation, but when we think about Brazil and the whitewashing and et cetera, there are many political, historical reasons why people don't associate Makumba practitioners or Umbanda, Kimbanda, Candomblé practitioners. Like there's so many beautiful traditions in Brazil that take root in African traditions as well as native traditions nowadays, right? But people don't make that connection right away. And it's interesting because I feel that in my journey in the Makumba, a lot of the work that my godmother does and did, and my mother did, it's like with weeds and with kitchen herbs. And always with that little warning of the dosage, you know, because they say even like a little too much thyme or a little too much rue or a little too much rosemary, it can do some harm. So for me, those are the first plants that I had a relationship with. And then growing up a little bit more, we have what here in the States is called the dumb cane that I will be bringing to the Botanica Obscura in 2025. That is one of the poisonous plants we use in my family. Like she's in reality, she's toxic. She's not poisonous, but there are a couple things we do to her to help that out a little bit. And I remember asking, you know, my godmother, and I'm like, why? Why do we want to work with things that can have a high level of toxicity, that can be harmful, that we have to be careful with? And her answer was like, why not? And I was like, whoa. And mind you, you know, in my family, we learn things in the kitchen. You are sitting there having coffee and like bread with butter with your mom, and then a neighbor knocked on the door and was like, oh, so and so is back with so and so again, can you do something about it? And then a phone would ring and they would gather a bunch of stuff, and you're still there eating your bread and butter and they are doing their magic over here. So it was very much how it was. So I was just like, why would we do that? It's just like, well, why not? And then she walks away, you know. And then with time and working with her more closely and seeing, you know, the things that she had to treat and the condition, the mental, emotional, social aspects of the clients that she had, I was just like, well, it's important to have a relationship with poison. It's important to have a relationship with weeds because that is such a potent medicine there. Like there is this aspect, sometimes we need a more visceral kind of protection, I would say. Sometimes we need to be slapped out of it, you know, like all those abusive relationships that we find ourselves in throughout our lives that we don't even recognize, and our own toxic traits that sometimes need a more sturdy, hardcore teacher to be like, okay, I'm going to tell you what you should do, and I'm not getting a no from answer. And I feel that like the weeds did that for me a lot. I'm a big dandelion fan. You know, we have dandelions in Brazil. It did so much for me. I have recovered from a eating disorder, and dandelion was there with me the whole time. And I know that people talk a lot about ashwagandha and tulsi, and I love them and I work with them, but dandelion was the plant for me, like letting go of that toxicity that I have absorbed and created, and like, okay, what does being healthy means right now? Let's try to investigate that. And then later, I took Datura floral essences. That was like, let me slap you out of this delirious state of mind that we are on right now and tell you that your perception of reality is not actually reality. And I don't know, I love chamomile, but I don't picture her being able to do that. You know, like it needed, it was needed a different kind of teacher. And I don't know, I just feel that you have portrayed that very well in the media. And, you know, it's the work that I know that made me feel the most connected with in that sense, and be like, oh, yeah, like chamomile and chamomile is needed, belladonna when belladonna is needed, like my godmother used to do. And we are not only accepting, but we are able to respect both ways of working.
Exactly.
What I think is just like so important. And it's the heart of the Botanica Obscura as well, of like all these different practitioners you have. Do you have some like favorite things you have heard of the Botanica Obscura that you would like to share? And you're like, oh, when so and so said that, it really was fun for me, like for the presentations.
Oh my gosh. Well, this will be the 4th year that we've done it. So that means around 75 presentations already for the past 3 years. You know, it's a pretty long marathon of a weekend hosting all of those. So everything kind of
Matches together.
leads together after a while. You know, we did do the plant people discussion panel, I think the first couple of years, and then skipped it last year, but we'll be doing it again this year. And that one's really nice because then you get like a group of us together. It's not all of the presenters, but a good handful of them. Kind of do like a Q&A, and just being able to get different practitioners' opinions and kind of insights, and just like the conversation that sort of organically arises from putting all of us in the same spot at the same time and being able to interact live is something that I think is pretty special. And then also getting to talk to the attendees in that regard. One thing that I have found really interesting, that it will be cool to see kind of what the underlying theme winds up being for this year, is that even though each one of the presentations is totally different, you know, so totally different topic, totally different plants, different practitioners from all sorts of different backgrounds, there always seems to be like this connecting thread that runs through everything that nobody really even knew was going to be a thing.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what that is for this year. Trying to think of what it was last year. I feel like it had to do with something to do with maybe it was like Hades. I know we had Jamie Wagner, who just came out with her book on Hades, god of the underworld. And so I think there were like some different parallels with plants that she talked about and plants that popped up in other people's presentations. So just getting to see like the different threads that connect the work that we do. I don't know, it just seems like there's something that is really kind of important swirling around all of this, that it's not something that just one person is able to express on their own, but that the plants really are pushing to get out there. And it seems like that really comes out really clearly when you sort of put all of us together in this greater tapestry. You know, so that's one of the most rewarding things and the most exciting things for me, is just seeing like all of the different ways that we are connected through the work that we're doing. And yeah.
There was like, I've been an attendee of the Botanica, I think, for the first two. And then I was a presenter last year. I'll be a presenter this year. And I love it. I try to watch as many presentations I can. If I am attending, if I'm presenting, like, I just think it's so nice because it's the thing you said. Sometimes somebody will say something about a plant, and then I turn to that plant who I have in my living room and be like, I didn't know you could also do that. Like, it's like meeting a friend through different lenses as well. It's like, okay, so you protect and you defend and you love magic. And then somebody's like, well, I actually use for prosperity. And I'm like, what? Can you do prosperity too? Like, how we haven't done that together yet? Like, let's talk about it. And I think it's really cool. And especially like when it comes to plants, I think we as humans have so much to learn from plants because they exist to their fullest. And that's what I like about the Botanica Obscura. Like, everybody will come and talk about the relationship they have with these plants and the spiritual path they are on and the other works and people and things that have influenced them up to that point. And they have no problem with you walking a different path and you knowing different aspects of that plant and like you being influenced by a different group of people. And I think plants do that so well. They are not trying to express themselves as like, I'm this one thing and that's the truth about me. And then when we work with them, we kind of become a little bit more like that. Like, yes, I work with snake plants a certain way, but I don't think it's wrong when somebody works with a snake plant in a different way because I know from my experience with the snake plant that she can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I can't box her. And as humans, we have this tendency, and I'm not the greatest fan of organized religion.
Mhm.
With that being said, I think that what bothers me with organized religion is this little box of like, here's a set of dogmas, here's a set of things you should believe in. And for you to believe in this, you cannot believe in anything else. And plant work kind of tells you that, like, well, you could be able to believe in many things and
Mhm.
choose which of those things you want to work with right now, but you don't have to disregard the other options. They still exist. You are just choosing not to explore them, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay for all of the things can exist, all of the things can be true. And I think that is what's so cool about a more plant-based practice is that, the plants are here walking the earth with us right now. They have all of this folklore and all of these traditions, but they're very much alive and fluid and flexible and constantly changing. And while we do have historical sources and historical folkloric documentation or oral traditions of things that have been passed down, like, it's all very mutable and changeable and manifests in all sorts of different ways, and how we work with them as we kind of go down the line into the future. So that flexibility is something that is always been really attractive to me. Also not being a super big fan of organized religion or just being told what to do in general. And no disrespect to like any other traditions, but you've got like the grimoire tradition, and I look at those people that are really well versed in that, and just, oh my gosh, they're so educated and they have all of this historical information, and they're reading through these big books that are just like torture for me to get through a few pages, and these like lengthy rituals, and you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do that, and that's just not how I work. And I think that the plants are totally on my side with that. Like, they bring out all of these different things depending on who they're in front of, what they're doing, what the goal is, what all of the different circumstances are. And so they're very much shapeshifters in that regard.
Yeah, I feel you with that statement. Like, it's not necessary. I love studying. So it's not about that. It's not about studying. And I think that study can be so freeing and empowering, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like, and I like to have a historical ground to stand on when I'm having a conversation, when people ask me, hey, why you do this way and not that way? I'm like, well, because this happened historically, and then this is where I stand. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's why I do it like that. So it's not about that. It's about the box, you know, like the box is the thing for me that I'm like, ooh. So even like with plant medicine, like when we study, well, here in the States is very different than in Brazil. It's like wild, the whole like herbalism, having like the traditional herbalism and then the more like witchy herbalism and stuff like that. The version of this that I know from Brazil, and of course there are different versions, is that it was one thing. You know, it's a one big thing. You are not gonna use, let's say, the physical medicine if you don't pray over the herb first. Like that's
Yeah.
not the thing we do, you know. And then I got here and I started studying, and I studied with Rosemary Gladstar, and I love her work. I think she's amazing. But it was interesting to me to see how people would separate sometimes like the energy of the medicine, and I'm like, but the energy is the medicine. Like I don't get it. Like my brain was like, am I translating this wrong? Is this like a language barrier? Like what is happening right now? And I was just like, why can't we just be okay with the idea that the plants are living beings? They have their own form of communication. And the same way that we have different aspects of our personalities, right? Like the person who I am here at the Moon Garden is the same person who goes to my day job, but I have to express different aspects of myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and the plants are the same thing. And I'm like, don't you guys notice that you also do that? Like, you don't tell your mom sometimes the same stuff you tell your partner or tell you tell your best friend. So it's the same thing with the plants, at least in the way that I see it, you know. And to me, it was a big like mind fuck kind of situation of like, hold on, you guys use the plants without the energy of the plants? How do you do that? Like, what
Magic.
I was just like, is this like reverse witchcraft? What are we talking
Right.
about? So I know it's been interesting for me, even though I've been here in the States for a very long time, because I'm still so attached to my root tradition. And I practice every day, and I talk to my mother, who conveniently is the Yalorixá of the family, right? So sometimes I'm like, well, I read this thing in this book here in the US. And she was like, well, yeah, but we've been saying that for a while, but they're missing half of it, right? Because
Mm.
what is the rest of it? And I'm like, there's no rest of it. It's just it's just the one thing. And I don't know, it's been a very fun but sometimes frustrating journey for me on that aspect. And especially when it comes to like the weeds and the poisonous plants, that have this whole taboo here that I didn't have growing up. And be like, well, sometimes just being the presence of that plant can fix whatever heartache you are having, whatever emotions. And then people are like, well, but that's not herbalism then. That's like spiritual herbalism, and it's a whole different thing. And I'm like, wait, what? Like
Mhm.
it's the same. Like the plant's the plant, you know, you're just using a different aspect of it. I don't know, kind of like, what is the difference of or well wishes to a loved one in the morning versus a massive ritual with a lot of tools? Yes, it will channel energy in different ways, but at the end of the day, we are still trying to evoke the energy to do something. So
Mhm.
to me, I'm a gray area kind of person. So it's definitely like, oh, this is weird. This is new.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of things that I want to say.
Oh, please do.
Um, I don't know. I think that clinical herbalism here in the US is kind of looping back around to some of those more traditional ways of thinking and the herbal energetics and understanding it as like a complete sort of holistic medicine and not, these very specific chemical components, which we see in, their pharmaceutical use and like, this substance is being isolated specifically for this action, and then kind of throwing everything else out, but looking at it as this holistic thing where it's all of these different components and, you know, thousands of different chemicals that come together, you know, to not only have this one single effect, but to have this synergistic effect that is maybe, you know, helping things that you don't even know are connected to the symptoms that you're trying to treat. So kind of coming back to that more holistic way of thinking. And I think that just comes down to like this sort of separation through, you know, I don't know if we want to call it like modern Western medicine with like very capitalistic goals and, you know, kind of like clinicalizing everything to the point where it's lost a lot of its spirituality and its energetics, but kind of seeing that in, you know, spiritual communities and magical practice too. And like we've got these books on herbs, and it will say like, this is the herb, prosperity, and or it will just like list different like magical actions or herbal actions for that, and very much like reducing them to more or less ingredients and not so much like a partnership or co-creator, or, you know, working with the spirit of the plant like we would literally any other spiritual entity that we might want to connect with, whether it's a deity, an ancestor, a nature spirit. It's like the plants, because they have this physical body, are somehow reduced to like a cooking ingredient, or a, you know, like a chemistry kind of a situation where you're just like mixing different things together to create, you know, X plus Y equals whatever the desired effect is, and working with things in, I just think it has to do with like living in a modern society where we sort of want to compartmentalize everything and think about it in that sort of a way. And that's something that I kind of struggle with too, with the poison path and working with the plants that I do, is that on the one hand, like understanding the chemistry and the action is really, really important. So you don't do something that is going to like hurt yourself or land you in the hospital, you know, but then it's also not just about, you know, the chemistry and the entheogenic effects and the mind altering effects. And like, this is a very like spiritual practice, which was the whole reason for becoming interested in it in the first place. So it's like, we've got to delve really deep into this very like physical phytochemical side of things and understanding how all of that works. But then at the same time, remember that, you know, they're very much power plants, master plant spirits, and, you know, interact with us on a whole nother level. So when people get kind of like caught up on the entheogenic and mind altering side of it, and, you know, they're just like slapping on an ointment and wondering why nothing happened, or they want to like, you know, eat a bunch of dathura seeds or smoke a bunch of henbane, and is purely for like cause and effect, and they're totally missing out on like this whole complete other part of it that is probably more important than the chemical part of it. Because if we really work with them on a like a spiritual and energetic level, the chemistry becomes less important, you know, and we can have these profound experiences working with flower essences or other vibrational formulas, or just, you know, sitting with the living plant, being around it and having that one-on-one communication. So
Yep. I so feel that in my own experience with it. You know, like I told my partner recently, I got really sick with a string of flu, cold, whatever was happening here in the South in Georgia. And I had to take 2 days off work. And legit, for me to be in bed, I have to be really, really bad because I naturally have a lot of energy. So I was in bed and I was feeling like as horrible as you could, and I couldn't do anything. And I was there, I was just like, well, I kind of need a soothing friend right now. And I'm like, I really want a chamomile, not because of the like chemical aspects of it, but I need to feel cozy. I need my mom kind of deal. And I have an emotional connection with chamomile because my grandmother used to drink a cup of chamomile tea every day at 6 o'clock with some crackers. Like it was the thing that she would do. So I was just like, okay, let's do that. And I'm laying in bed just with no energy even to read, watching through the window. And I felt, as I had the chamomile tea, like I felt my chest relaxing, as if as if I was feeling taken care of. If my worries about missing 2 days of work and and the things that I had to do and the deadlines, blah blah, all of a sudden I was like, it's okay, I got you. Like it's all right. You were sick. Like let's take care of this body first. Let's be grateful for this body. And that was way more of a spiritual experience with that plant than like a chemical one. And then you can say, well, but chamomile does calm you down and it's good for your stomach and the list goes on, and the fever. Yes, all of that. But like it really showed up for me. And I feel that it showed up for me not only because I have a respectful relationship with, but because my grandmother had it and my mother had it. And I used to struggle with skin allergies that nothing would help with it. And my eyes would be like swollen and all of that. And I couldn't put makeup on. And for my job, I have to put makeup on sometimes. And chamomile was always there for me as like a cool compress that I would be doing, and it would help a lot. So I'm like, here is a plant that knows me, like the consciousness, whatever you want to call it, the spirit, the consciousness, the energy, like that plant knows me, and she understands that right now I'm feeling quite broken and I'm kind of angsty, in this bed. And she came and had that hug. And after that, I slept for many hours and I woke up feeling better. And like, yes, and I was taking a lot of garlic and honey and blah, blah, blah. But it was that connection with chamomile that I feel that really helped me.
Yeah.
And if I was focusing only on the chemicals, I wouldn't have had chamomile that moment. Like I needed something else. But emotionally, energetic, it made sense. So I so agree with you. Like, yes, do your research. You don't want to be, ingesting things or putting things on your skin, whatever, that are not good for you, or the dosage is not appropriate for you. But nothing has the same value as that personal relationship. Like it doesn't matter how many books you read, not having that like, okay, let me hear about you from you moment. It's, I don't know, for me it's not the same. And I'm a simplistic, as you see, like I talk about chamomile and dandelion. So I don't think it has to be the most complex plant that has ever, sprouted from the earth. But it has to be a plant that you love and you like, or at least that you admire to a degree. I don't know.
Yeah, and we always say like, oh, it's just chamomile or it's just dandelion, but like there's a reason that literally everybody on the planet has probably had chamomile tea at one point, or even dandelion, and it's just such an important and powerful medicine, even though it acts more gently or something that can be taken more long term. You don't have to worry about like overdosing on it.
Yes.
Not to say that it's not, just as powerful. And just with like the connection that you had with chamomile, like it probably would have done the same thing if it was cinnamon or mint that your grandmother was drinking every day at 6 o'clock. So I think that connection is really where it's at for sure.
I agree. What do you think about us giving some favorites for the people listening to our Sunday afternoon conversation just for funsies?
Okay.
So, what's your favorite poison plant of today? Because I know it changes depending on where we are in life. Like today, who is the best friend of the day?
Today, that's a really good question. It does change. It does change. I promise it changes, but I'm going to say deadly nightshade, which is kind of my, that's the one that I always say, oh, this is the first one that I was really attracted to, the one that's kind of like held my hand through all of this. But it does change, so in the past it has been foxglove, it has been wolfsbane, it's been henbane, it's been Amanita muscaria mushroom. But today I feel like we're kind of back in sort of a belladonna era.
And I don't have it anymore. I purchased your belladonna rosary. And then I gifted to one of the ancestor spirits we work with. That's why I say that I don't have it anymore. Physically, it's here in my house, but it's not mine. And whenever I have to be in a social setting that I would rather not to, but I have to because of work and I have to behave a certain way, I do wear it with her permission because I feel that like the belladonna is not deceiving, but the way that she can sometimes make up the truth a little bit to help you out, it really helps me out to keep my personality under control and be the person I need to be for the job until I come back home. So I see the appeal. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, very much like tapping into the courage and confidence, and something like we don't really focus on too much when it comes to belladonna. We look more at like the seductive, glamorous sort of side of it, but it's also an herb associated with battle and warfare, and has actually been used in like early forms of chemical warfare when it comes to like poisoning other people's armies, and it's got the connection to the Valkyries. So it's very much like this sort of, you know, powerful feminine warrior spirit that helps us to kind of, you know, be charming in these situations, but also, you know, not take any shit and be very stoic, reserved. Yes.
Do you have a favorite of the day non-poisonous plant?
Um, hmm. Probably would say cinnamon. You know, and that's probably just because it's winter time and it's cold, and
Yeah,
I've been adding like cinnamon to my coffee. I just had some cinnamon tea yesterday.
it's a good one for the weather we are experiencing here in the northern hemisphere. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I would like to give people a couple reasons why I think they should check the Botanica Obscura Conference out. And, you know, I think the first thing I want to say is that if you guys are into this whole plant conversation, let's stretch the boundaries of reality and gray areas and right and wrongs and bring it back. The Botanica Obscura Conference is the place for you to go and enjoy that. Um, all the diversity of the practitioners, like we talked about, like the diversity of the paths that we have, you know, of all these people who feel really loved and respected in their practices and have built beautiful magical relationships, who are there sharing how they got to this place or how you maybe can explore how to get to a similar place of your own. And just the knowledge, in my opinion, like just the raw knowledge, the like getting to know the plants and getting to know the people, it's fantastic. Anything you would add to that that you're like, this is why you should come to the Botanica Obscura?
Yeah, I mean, it's very special. It's a very special thing. It's very real. It's very down to earth. And you know, not just because it's something that I started or something that I'm hosting, because I feel like I'm really just sort of the one that makes social media graphics and promotes it. And then, you know, it's like much bigger than me or what I'm doing. And it's just a very, very special thing, all of this coming together, and how it comes together every year and how it's presented, and just the diversity of the presentations, the passion of the presenters, all of the knowledge and experience. You know, I would just say it's one of the most real and down to earth conferences that you could probably possibly attend. Um,
I agree. And I have got a similar feedback from somebody who watched a couple presentations last year. And she was like, what I really like about this is that I feel that I could do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. You
yeah.
could do it. Like, it's possible. It's real. We are all real people just trying to enjoy our own magics while alive. So, yeah, you are completely right. And I know this year you created the daily passes, right? That is different than just purchasing the ticket for the whole conference. That is Friday through Sunday. Am I correct?
Yeah, the daily passes are new for this year. Since it is an entire weekend, it's 25 presentations. Not everybody is able to attend all of them, whether it's time or it's money or just like not wanting to. Some people are only interested in certain presentation topics. So we broke it down this year to where you can sign up for individual days. So if you just want to do Friday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday, you're able to do that as well as the entire weekend. And everything is live, but then also recorded. So whether you sign up for the weekend pass or the daily passes, you'll get access to the live presentations as well as all of their recordings for the next year.
I will make sure I add like all of your information somewhere here in the video, somewhere in the email, the Botanica Obscura information. We'll do all that fun editing stuff afterwards. And how can we support you so you can keep doing the amazing work you do? You can write my books. Like how can we support you? What can we do? Buy books.
You can buy books. You can also support me on Patreon, patreon.com/poisonersapothecary. I've been running that for a little over 3 years now. So if you sign up for the monthly access, you'll get access to, 3 years worth of articles, plant profiles. I also do any like virtual classes that I offer. For the Pharmacos tier, they get access to all of those. So that's the way that you can support me. Follow me on social media at Poisoner's Apothecary. That's where I'm giving everybody updates on all of the things. Yeah.
Nice. Well, and to everybody watching, thank you so much for spending time with us. Share with a friend, with a fool, with somebody you like, somebody you don't like, whoever you want to do. Remember to check out the Moon Garden work if you want to come in for a reading, a Cowrie shell reading, a tarot reading, watch a class. You can always reply to any of my emails. I will get back to you with 24 hours if you have a question. I also want to say, I like to remind everybody that one of the ways that I believe that I stand against the capitalism and the patriarchy is that I do offer scholarships. So if you are ever in a moment of your life that you're like, hey, Debora, I really, really want to take this cycle studies. I really want to be a member. I cannot pay. It's just not a thing for me. Do reach out to me. The scholarship is not a free for all kind of deal. The scholarship is an exchange. Because again, I am a practitioner of the Makumba. I believe in the power of the healthy exchanges, but it's something such as you're going to do 3 good things around your neighborhood, and then I'm going to give you the pass for that cycle studies, or kind of deal. So don't ever be afraid of reaching out regarding that. And yes, let's all take a moment to thank Kobe all together and his amazing presence in this talk. I recommend his work once again, everybody. I am a big fan of the stuff he does, and I think you could take a look at that and take a look at the Botanica and come to my presentation about the plants of Oya and Yasan of the Buffalo Woman and so many other fun ones. So yeah, that's it, everybody. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.